Hi everyone, Christina here. Thanks for viewing my channel today. And today's topic for me is anxiety and panic attacks. And because I've dealt with them my whole life, and some tips that perhaps are helpful for others that, have panic or anxiety attacks. But before I do that, I wanted to share a little story, and I thought it was, super cute. And it relates to anxiety. And that is, I was born to a mother and father that had me in their 40s. So, it was a totally different era, and way of thinking. And also my mom kind of had this personality. I kind of call it the ostrich head in the sand, where, if you ignore it, it's just going to go away. So, and that was just, that's just the way she was. So having her understand that I had bipolar disorder was, she just was really resistant for a long time. But when I got stable, about 4 years ago, my mom must have been about 91 at the time. And I stopped by to see her, and she said, you're doing amazing. And I said, thanks, Mom. And she said, so this bipolar thing, it's not going to go away. And I said, mm-mm. And she said, okay, well, then I need to learn about it so I can understand it. So how about I go to your next appointment with you? Which was mind-blowing to me, that my mom wanted to go and sit in on my psychiatric appointment. I was just blown away. I was like, where's my mom and what have you done with her? Because it was just a totally different experience than I'd ever had. So we went up to my psychiatrist, and I brought her in, and she sat down, and she sat through the appointment. She was actually asking questions, and we got done with it, and we got back to the car, and she said, well, it could be worse. You've got bipolar, so you have to take a pill the rest of your life. There's worse things in life. And that was Mom's optimistic side that has been so strengthening for me. She may be or was in denial about certain things, but it never prevented, her drive and will to go on. And for me, having her all of a sudden accept my disorder, it was probably one of the best days of my life. It's right up there. But anyway, my mom became so acceptant of my disorder that one day we were out to lunch together, and we ran into some of Mom's friends, some I knew, some I didn't know. And they said, how have you been doing? And I'm like, oh, good, thank you. And Mom said, oh, she is doing wonderful. She is just a different person. She said, she's got that bipolar and that antisocial personality disorder, but she's managing it, and she's a different person. Oh my God. I got back to the car, and when we were done, and I was just mortified, and I said, Mom, I don't have antisocial personality disorder. I have social anxiety with my bipolar. She said, aren't they the same thing? And I said, no. One of them is what I have, and the other one is like attributes of sociopaths or psychopaths. Anyway, but it was comical in the sense that she was so acceptant of it, and for her to make the mistake, it would be so expected and considered normal. So anyway, that's my story with my mom, and it really meant so much to me that she was able, to understand what I was going through. So I have been plagued by anxiety or panic attacks pretty much my whole life. And sometimes, on several occasions, I would get so upset or panicked that I faint. I literally faint. And it's very obvious, or it was very obvious when I was having these panic or anxiety attacks, because there was a noticeable change in my attitude, my emotions at the moment, heart pounding, and feeling like I've got a temperature. And I mean, just it was, I could feel it coming on. And then something unusual happened when I became really stable on my medication. And, in treating me, not only are we treating, my bipolar, but, I've got kind of a smorgasbord of mental stuff that we have to deal with. And so part of that is, anxiety. But anyway, I guess it was about 4 years ago, and I had been in a stressful situation. My son was living with me, and he's an adult, but he came back to live with me for a while, and it was just a fiasco. And one morning I woke up and I was sitting drinking coffee, watching the news, and all of a sudden I felt like this wave just come over me, where I felt like my heart was going to stop beating. I felt like it kept slowing down, and my vision got weird, blurry, and my head felt like someone was crushing me from the top down. And I also have high blood pressure, I should add. And so my first response, first of all, I was really scared because it felt really, and it was new, unusual. And the second part, I went and I took my blood pressure because I was honestly expecting it to be like, I don't know what the lowest low without dying is, but I thought it would be super low. And when I took my blood pressure, it was freakishly high. I'm talking like 225 over 145. And I thought, how is this even possible? Because I feel like my heart's going to stop. I'm not having pounding in my chest. What's going on? But I was worried, and I was actually worried I was going to have a stroke. And so I drove myself, probably not the best idea, but that was what I had, to the emergency room. And when I got in there, I, of course, I gave my family history that, we do have a lot of heart problems, and I'm getting up there a little long on the tooth. And so they thought I was having a heart attack, and because of my symptoms. And so anyway, to run through the story, I was there for like 4 hours of testing. And at the end of the testing, the ER doctor came in and he's like, well, I can't really explain any of this. Everything looked really normal. Do you have any kind of mental illness? Now, this is good to point out, and this is where I really started telling all my doctors about my disorder, because I learned it can really make a difference. So when he asked me if I had a mental condition, I said, well, yeah, I have bipolar disorder, but it's managed. I mean, I'm level. And he said, well, you had a panic attack. And I was like, what? Because I didn't feel any of the symptoms or warnings that I was used to. And certainly I didn't feel like my chest was pounding, out of control, just the opposite. But he told me I had had a panic attack. At first I was like a little skeptical, and then he came in with, I can't remember which one it was, like Ativan or something, and he gave it to me. and I had to wait there for a while. And I'll be darned if my blood pressure didn't just go down. Now, I'm not advising this as blood pressure medicine at all. I'm just saying that it was clear to me that, it was an emotional or anxiety um, provoked thing. And so he sent me home with a couple pills, and he said, you need to tell your psychiatrist this. So I felt so foolish driving home. I mean, I felt fine. And I thought, oh my gosh, that was I shouldn't have been such an alarmist, and how stupid, you know? So when I saw my psychiatrist, I was confused, and told him what happened. And he said it's not unusual when people get a certain part of their, let's just say, get their head right or whatever, that symptoms change. And the fact that um, perhaps the lithium or whatever, I don't know if it was that or what, but it had changed the way, panic, I mean, kept him under control. Well, not just the lithium, but anyway, my anxiety had reduced immensely when I was treated. But it also, he told me that the way that anxiety plays out can be very different, and that's normal. So he did end up giving me a prescription, and he said to be aware and recognize things that are possibly anxiety provoking. And so that's what I have to do now, because it's happened on like two other occasions, and it was anxiety. So it's strange how it can manifest, and it's really strange not feeling like, it's like, where did that come from? Anyway, like I said, I've dealt with it a long time, and there are some things I have found helpful, and maybe some of them it's totally obvious, but I'll just run down the first one. So, it's count your breaths, or take deep breaths, or, control your breathing. Well, that's great. And, that, if it works for you, great. But it didn't really work for me. Another thing I learned was, it's kind of like was tricking my brain, and it was counting from 100 backwards by threes. And I know it sounds really weird, but it takes focus, and it takes concentration. And in doing so, I was able to kind of break the cycle. And it began to really work. So you might want to try that. Who knows? It might work for you. It might not, but it's worth a try, right? Another thing is grounding ourselves is so important. Be it through meditation or whatever, but being grounded is really helpful for anxiety. And when I'm feeling anxious, or it doesn't have to be an anxiety attack, but I try to do this. I try to think of 4 things around me that I can see. And I try to think of 3 things that I can touch, and 2 things that I can smell, and 1 thing that I could taste. And I know that sounds super weird, but I can't remember which doctor it was that had given me that advice, but I have found it helpful. I think a lot of it is mind play in my case, because I guess because I've had my disorder so long that it's just become such a study of mine, and figuring it out and dealing with it. So I don't know if any of these will work for you, but some of them have definitely worked for me. Another thing, is, for instance, it's, and this is kind of like a dialectical behavior technique, which I've had cognitive, I've had dialectical, I've had it all, but I found I kind of morph them together, or, put them as a mashup. But um, for instance, if you feel like you're getting anxious when you go outside in the sunshine, try putting on sunglasses. Try to do something that might change that thought or behavior, and you never know. Just changing one little thing, you know, can sometimes change your thought process and your feelings. And so, anyway, that's another thought. So I hope I hope my today's video was partially entertaining and hopefully informative. And thank you for being here and watching. And please like and subscribe and share if you like my channel. My whole goal here is to help others and just share my own experiences. And, hopefully that'll help other people, because I know I've gained so much. It's been really helpful for me to come on YouTube and connect with others, because it's just an area of feeling like you can relate. And so I hope you can relate to me, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Until then, please like and subscribe and have an awesome day.